Konnichiwa, I'm Kawaii Critic, and today I'm here to count down both mine and Bucksan's top 3 episodes of My Little Pony Season 7. This is what we did last time, so we're back at it again, only doing the top 3. These are the episodes we thought were the most interesting, most compelling, or just the most easy to watch overall, and had probably the least amount of issues among them. Keep in mind that these picks are our opinions, and yeah, with that said, please enjoy this countdown. Number 3. Spiky-kun has done it again, making it to one of our top 3 spots in one of the episodes. This episode being Triple Threat. Now, interestingly enough, at first viewing, we actually didn't really like this episode, but after giving it a few more watches and watching the really subtle things that were happening and sort of perhaps a theory that has been crafted by my brother, has really made this episode actually stick out a lot more than originally probably even intended to be. So, Spiky-kun's original fear is what I believe to be something that really helps build this episode up, and its sub-fear kind of drifts off from that. So his initial fear, if you pay attention closely enough, is that he was afraid that these two, that being Amber-san and Thorax-san, would start a war. And then from that initial fear, he feared that they wouldn't get along. And from that perspective, I can appreciate it more than just it being, oh, these two are very different. It didn't start from that point. It started from, these are two leaders from two different countries, and if they don't get along, there will be a war. And that's really big. I mean, if you were to, say, put this in a real-life context, imagine you are a young person, and you somehow happen to be friends with two different countries, and the people from the two different countries happen to be your friends, but they're very different. And you know that if they don't get along, the potential for war is a possible outcome. That is kind of intimidating if you really think about it that way. So Spiky-kun's fear in this episode feels so justified. And sure, Twilight-san's interactions are a little bit odd in this episode, which is why I placed it at my number 3. But other than that, it was interesting to see how Amber-san was able to confuse her with Starlight-san and how these two have become so similar. Now, I didn't necessarily find that bit funny, but I found it a bit interesting, more or less. More so over, getting back to that theory, which is one of the reasons why I put this at my number 3, deals with the triple threat itself. Now, initially, again, at first watch, it just seemed like, oh, the triple threat is obviously Spiky-kun, Amber-san, and Thorax-san. That's the only triple threat, and the problem was, yes, solved without Spiky-kun's help. But I actually appreciate that more than I find it off. Not every friendship problem has to be solved with the character involved, and in fact, this is the first episode I've ever seen where that has not been the case, where the person that was called by the map is not involved. And I actually, after thinking about it from that point of view, I've actually gained a lot more respect for that choice, because it came down to Amber-san and Thorax-san. Now, getting back to the other context of triple threat in that theory video I was referring to, Spiky-kun technically did solve 3 friendship problems, did he not? And sure, one happened on screen and one happened off screen for more so of a joke, but he did technically solve 3 friendship problems, a triple threat. And the last one just happened to be the one that everyone assumed he was supposed to solve. But what if the map was smart enough to call Spiky-kun to solve 3 smaller problems in Ponyville? There's never any context that proves otherwise, so why not? We've never seen the map do it before, but why not now? Right? There's often that saying that the map is omnipotent and is able to figure things out like that, so maybe it was testing Spike with smaller tasks that it knew he could handle. So, Triple Threat is interesting, and its subtext and theory possibilities are also interesting, and while it has one issue, the rest of it is pretty solid, which is why it made my number 3 spot. Number 2! Max and Recreation took the number 3 spot. And yeah, it retreads on an episode that we've seen before, Bloom and Gloom in particular, but just because an episode retreads a theme, I won't take away points just because it's doing so. And at the very least, it's doing it with a character that we haven't really seen a lot of. So, in that way, I feel it's a little bit more justified over than a character that's the same learning the same lesson over and over again. But even that has its reasons and purposes, but I'm getting a little bit off track. I like this episode, and its subtle writing really helped it get to this number 3 spot, where not every character is 100% in the right, but no one is also 100% in the wrong either. Every character feels justified in their reasonings, and it's just presented in a really nice way. As my brother mentioned in another video, Rumble-kun is very reminiscent of Peter Pan-san, and it's a really interesting story from that perspective when you follow that ideology and can come to that conclusion. And again, some of its subtle writing, like when Rumble-kun says your open-ended question, really opens up these really small, quick things that just really make you go, huh, that's a really interesting way of looking at this. And it makes the character kind of intelligent, even though it kind of leads to a place that isn't necessarily great, because they end up sort of eventually getting to that place where they sort of just do nothing with the rest of the fillies and colts that just sit around and do nothing. But up until that point, it was really well paced, and the song was really catchy and fun, and even its, again, more subtle messages and sort of imagery, I should say, really stick out. Now, yeah, I did actually look into the whole, what Apple Geek referred to as the whole circle thing with, Kettlecorn-kun, there we go. With her drawing the incomplete circles when she didn't have her cutie mark, and then finally drawing the complete circle while she was at the table explaining how she got her cutie mark and stuff like that. And then when she covered her cutie mark, the circle was incomplete again. And from Rumble-kun's perspective, just because you are in an incomplete circle it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially for one so youthful. And this episode also does a really good job of subverting expectations while still being the episode about, how Katie marks her silly or whatever. I mean, it does sort of switch gears at the very start where it's sort of almost hinting that it could also be that he's jealous of his older brother, Thunderling's son. So it subverts expectations. It has really solid writing throughout. It's pretty entertaining, pretty funny at points, has a pretty solid song, and that's all the reasons why I placed it on my number 3 spot. And the number 1 episode is The Perfect Pair. Now, I don't really care if this is chosen by the majority of reviewers, or if it makes me boring like Lily Pete claims it will. I just enjoy this story, and it's a simple story, and that's what makes it just so easy to follow. And the subtext and nuance of the music telling a story, and then the rest of what's going on tell another sort of story, really helps elevate this. And this episode does something so interesting, is that it tells a story that if it's done here, I'm satisfied. And if they choose to continue it, I'll also be satisfied. It just feels right. And the moral of this episode feels so natural. It's probably one of the most natural fitting morals I've ever seen in My Little Pony ever handled. At least as far as writing is concerned. It's the flow of it just feels so right. The song is beautiful, and the characters are just enjoyable to watch. There's not really much to say about why I think this is the number 1 episode, but maybe I'm just a sucker for a good love story. Who knows? I don't know. It's hard to say, but regardless of whatever others think, yeah, I just found this pleasantly surprising. And we at least got to go there through this story. And yeah, it's been confirmed for a long time that these characters are dead, so likelihood of them reappearing in some form of fashion would also have to be done via flashback and have to deal with something else, so I don't know how likely that is, but again, if they end this story here, I'm also satisfied. So we got this story, and it's just beautiful. That's all I can really say. At the end of the day, this story is just simply beautiful. And yeah, it would be too cliche to say that the story is perfect, necessarily, but ironically enough, and going right back to the cliche and hypocrisy of it all, because of its imperfections, I kind of feel like it's perfect in a weird, sort of bizarre way. I don't know. I guess that's a stupid thing to say, but what else can I say about this episode that probably won't have already been said via other reviews and probably other top counts that will probably include this episode as well. So, there it is. Those are the top 3 episodes of Season 7. Enjoy! And that's it for this one. Stick top ding dong tori! And if you enjoyed this countdown, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, bye!